We are headed toward and in the midst of massive species extinction and human hunger, which exists on a global scale. These are the main factors that are currently shaping the lives of billions of souls inhabiting this planet. Uncertainty is a daily experience for all of us. Our security and confidence have been deeply shaken because we have become a fractured and frantic species moving down a path of destruction. Our search for answers in old science and antiquated religions no longer holds hope and validity. Today, we are perched on a precipice where none of us can afford to be apathetic. We can no longer ignore immorality and corruption. We can no longer ignore that a dark force is alive and growing every day. But this force, though mighty, is not inevitable. My friends, goodness can prevail. Listen to your hearts. Listen to your higher being. And as we raise our voices of compassion in a world spinning out of control, together we can step back from the abyss. We must immediately change our planetary course. There must be a global awakening and individual empowerment to be all that we are. The time is finally come to turn our attention and creative forces as one humanity toward creating the conditions that will ensure the necessary solutions we must have in order to face these challenges to our common survival. Then we will experience a shimmering and bright future. Now prompted by the sheer size of our global predicament and awakened by a global unifying consciousness expressing the best of each of us, a great number of us have been alerted to the need to change course, to create a new world. In the process, we are gradually parting with many of the obsolete values and beliefs in a dying paradigm characterized by the self-centered focus responsible for so much of our planet's distress. This new co-creative process, the term co-creative, is expressed by Barbara Marx Hubbard and Dr. Irvin Laszlo. This new conscious evolutionary process is twofold. We firmly oppose what is directly causing the destruction and imbalance in our world, and we courageously dedicate ourselves to creating here and now the seeds of change that must quickly blossom into a new era of permanent enlightenment and peace for our planet and for ourselves. May we dedicate our thoughts, prayers, meditations, and actions as guided by our higher mind to encouraging within each of us the sense of a positive future. Let us empower ourselves individually and collectively to meet the challenges of this time and ensure that we manifest the material and environmental conditions that will support the spiritual fulfillment of all that divine guidance, kindness, and oneness can flow for the highest good of all beings. This kind of dedicated prayer and personal commitment to the higher truth is critical. However, we all know that when people are severely oppressed by political and economic conditions, lack of health care, education, monopoly of natural resources, slave labor, unjust laws and court starvation and tyrannical regimes, just offering food for their souls is not enough. When people are preoccupied with mere survival, giving them only spiritual messages will not bring about the global reforms needed for them to be able to rise out of their misery. That is why we need to work for change that is monumental, embodying sweeping reforms for Earth and her people. We need to completely rethink our world and then take appropriate action. We need to become the spiritual activists ourselves and then motivate others to participate according to their individual and collective capabilities. How can we live a spiritual life every day in wartime, in a world of heightened separation between people, between humans and nature, men and women, rich and poor, old and young? How can we find the presence of God amidst fear, tension, and conflict? Well, through spiritual practice, through remembering, through presence. I read once that Joseph Campbell said that a literature of the Spirit should be read alongside the daily news. Let's accept the possibility that we may not make it. That the forces of madness and destruction may be so powerful that our species may collapse. Alongside that acceptance of such a possible finale to human life, let's also accept that we can be and are instruments of dramatic change. Global warming and scarcity issues aside, our species' mental hardware and spiritual capacity may be fully capable of rectifying such problems. Collectively speaking, when necessary, we can pull ourselves together. We can curtail our burgeoning excess of overconsumption, overpopulation in water, soil, and air pollution, and even the patriarchal expression we call war. Let us acknowledge that when things get bad enough, we are capable of figuring out how to restore balance to daily life, our communities, and our lovely Mother Earth. In order to build this new world, we must begin within ourselves. We each must become the voice of balance, creating the love, strength, and awareness to be joyful, beautiful beings. Then we can carry that energy into the world. We can become activists, spiritual activists. However, building a better world is spiritually hazardous work. It forces us to deal directly with the duality that is manifest, the perception of forces in opposition to each other. The spiritual dilemma is the apparent opposition of duality to the reality of oneness that is the spiritual premise. We go into the world and discover wrongdoing. Our very perception of wrongdoing works against this premise and what we are hoping to accomplish. We may try to change the words we use to describe the wrong. Call it ignorance, disharmony, greed, a problem, a spiritual challenge. It is still a form of something we perceive as needing to change. The weeds need to be pulled. Yet even that metaphor suggests something to be disposed of. So what do? We need simple honesty. We need to become compassionate and intelligent creatures, able to come to difficulties and solve them compassionately and intelligently. That simple honesty requires clarity. When clarity experiences opposition, it offers more and more clarity. This tumultuous time offers us a wonderful opportunity for clarity and spiritual practice, for the cultivation of a new mind, one that had undergirded us forever. In truth, nothing needs fixing. We just need to wake up to what has always been. Through clarity, we can see that we are being gifted through this apparent planetary collapse with the possibility of liberating the goodness that is inherent in every person. Look at the unprecedented worldwide gathering of millions calling for peace. There was a genuine community and joy at the ones Robin and I attended. And I believe there was an expansion of the field of peace. People are also banding together to demand changes in the way governments treat the environment. Other activists are calling our attention to those in desperate need, the elderly, the poor, the children. Groups are finding new approaches to racial issues and women's issues. Experts are teaching others how to resolve deep-seated conflict and how to enhance relationships. Workshops and spiritual growth seminars are appearing everywhere. The choices and opportunities for social change have never been so great. Recently, Robin and I were asked to give a talk in Hollywood to a group of 300 amazing young people who were the tribal leaders for the so-called underground dance culture. At this gathering of the tribes, we found hope, love, intelligence, spirit, and heart. We came away from this magical weekend genuinely moved by the knowledge that gentleness and kindness, as well as activism, are alive and resident in many extraordinary young people who are ready to take their places in a conscious evolution. So why do we seem so stuck? Why is there so much pessimism? Perhaps it is because the cloud that hangs over our civilization obscures the many small successes. We seem to be waiting for a bold breakthrough without realizing it is already happening and that we already know what to do. I pointed out a moment ago that our gloom has ample enough reason to exist. Although we blame the corporate media for delivering so much bad news, our newspapers, magazines, and TV are filled with legitimate problems. Our wake-up call for change went off years ago, not with just 9/11, and this call has been getting louder and louder and louder. Well, we have all heard the alarm. Many have turned it off and continue fear-filled sleepwalking. We must not lose sight, however, of the many others who have responded to the crisis of our time with vigor. The gravity of the problems, environmental threats, economic insecurity, the escalation of violence has forced millions to reevaluate and rethink how they are conducting their lives and how their leaders are running their countries. We have experienced impressive leaps forward in spite of what appear to be recent setbacks. The movement for ecological sustainability has motivated many corporations to become more socially responsible as part of their bottom line and compelled many people to reject the materialistic lifestyle. Whole person medicine has helped other disciplines accept a whole systems approach. And the technology of the internet has closed the spaces between cultures and countries at a time when scientists are confirming that all life is interrelated and interdependent. Above all, people are earnestly searching for meaning and purpose, something to help them make sense of it all. Unfortunately, many people still tend to ridicule or trivialize seekers looking for inner peace, or those trying to apply the power of love to solve societal problems. So many have become accustomed to hard news that they make light of anything soft. Yet what could be more important than discovering we're more altruistic, we're more empathetic than we thought, or that the human heart really does dictate messages to the brain? What could be more exciting than the prospect of the world's religions overcoming their differences in faith to work together for the benefit of humankind? What could be more beneficial than science seeing consciousness and meaning in its findings? What is more hopeful than people working together to build a consensual framework for sustainability? Sociologist, researcher, and regular faculty member of the Prophets Conferences, Dr. Paul Ray, has reached some important conclusions regarding our potential future. Even though his research identified 50 million idealistic individuals in the United States and potentially 90 million in Western Europe, people he calls cultural creatives, people who strongly support ecological sustainability and social change, he says, quote, in the next 2 decades, our world will either be dramatically better or dramatically worse. The thing that cannot happen is just more of the same. Our future is not foreordained. We are at a tipping point in civilization. Throughout society, we are beginning to develop practical and effective ways to promote the best in human nature. Admittedly, there is much we need to learn, but I think that what we have to learn is already here. We just need to open up to it. Although the fog of uncertainty, insecurity, and unrest seems thick, and the well-being of our planet and our political and cultural freedoms are seen to be degrading, it is these very conditions that may be necessary in order to stimulate our awakening and the birthing of a new cycle of being. As the new science has observed, out of the chaos of the breakdown of the old forms comes order of a new level. Indeed, out of the current chaos in our world, new and wondrous things may be on the verge of creation. It takes discipline to transcend our old habits and fictional belief systems that suggest otherwise. And improved life demands improvements in our way of life. We have to discover or create new ways to care for people and ways to control our new technologies. If the last century's spiritual focus was transcending ordinary mind and attaining heightened consciousness, this century's focus will be to wake up, step into, and operate from that transcendence. That future is here now. As Dr. Irvin Laszlo says, quote, to master our destiny, we need new thinking, new values, a new consciousness. As Pir Vilayat so beautifully said, the universe is evolving toward an even greater destiny, and we are the means of this transformation. In conclusion, let me ask those of you here in Oxford and those of you listening to the tapes to take the lead, to be the conscious and compassionate leaders, to be the spiritual activists, to truly and deeply know your connection with the whole. May each of us find the areas most fitting for our passions and leadership capabilities. In this new era, let us all be the intelligent and compassionate leaders in all walks of life, in the arts and sciences, in education, in healthcare, business, politics, media, human rights, the environment, and personal and spiritual growth. Let us find balance between our masculine and feminine energies. Let us find within ourselves the ability to be examples of spiritual maturity and conscious evolution. And let us join with the higher mind to not only help bring about the survival of our kind, but to create something wonderful. Since we all are an expression of the Gaian mind, let us each become architects of the magnificent. Thank you.